Henry Nowak, stabbed 5 times. You know, his hands clearly white when they put handcuffs on him because of the blood that he lost. Visible on the video. His hands are white. He says he's been stabbed. I can't believe. The police say, no, you haven't, mate. Absolutely ludicrous. You know, imagine Nawaz here points out some valid points, and I will add to it as well before we start, is in regards to the fear of racism or the power of that brand of racism can do. You know, it's like having a superpower. It's like a get out of jail free card. You know, understand? If you remember the what do you call it, in regards to the Manchester Evening News arena attack, yeah, the public inquiry into that, and there were witnesses, security witnesses, who said they did not challenge the perpetrator, who had a suspicious package on his back, walking around looked like a Ghostbuster. Didn't challenge him because they thought they were fear of being branded racist for doing so. And he would have probably used a racist card. Let's have a listen to this.
I mean, this is something that's not just happened today or yesterday. This has been brewing for decades in this country. Unfortunately, we as communities in Britain have been living together apart. We've been growing together apart. And
now, just a point there as well in regards to that comment about rage. Okay, now all of a sudden the left are saying, "Oh, he's inciting violence," right? All of a sudden now the left are against violence when it comes to defence of your liberties. You know, they supported the Black Lives Matter riots. They supported that because it was against racism. It was justified violence. Yeah. Now, I would not, you know, I don't think it would be moral if people did go after the police, because if the police are oppressing people or killing them or allowing them to die, then why isn't and the people are helpless by it, and when they complain about it, nothing is done. At what point is aggression in retaliation not justified?
90s era Labour Party motivated so-called multiculturalism in this country has, rather than lead to the empowerment of minorities, it has instead led to monocultural ghettos, where the first victims, in fact, are the ethnic minorities it claims to defend, because what we've seen is the complete disappearance of social mobility in this country and the balkanization of our communities. And that's really the context in which this tragic murder of Henry Nowak has come in, because, of course, what kind of mindset has been brewing for so many years that leads in the end result to police feeling paralyzed in their ability to recognize who the victim was here and who the perpetrators were, from fear of being called racist. And that, in fact, if you look to the underage rape grooming gang scandal that's also been brewing for decades in this country under the Labour Party, is precisely why Keir Starmer
and there's a reform, not reform, there's an investigation into that being caught by, what do they call it now, what's the name? Oh, I forget the name of the part. Restore Britain. That was it. They're doing an investigating into it. Okay. And the statements from the victims were shocking. I'll show you that later on. Rupert Lowe. read them out in Parliament. Okay?
His Labour Party were unable to act when it came to these sorts of crimes because they were paralysed from the fear of being called racist. Keir Starmer, if you remember, Michelle, whipped every single Labour MP in Parliament against the inquiry into underage rape grooming gangs. And now here is another example where the police, for reasons that only they can explain, decided to arrest a man who then died in their arms after he'd been stabbed 4 times. The reaction of rage in this country is perfectly understandable, and anyone, including Kemi Badenoch, by the way, the leader of the Conservatives, anyone who tries to weaponize this moment to score political points, instead of expressing sheer outrage at the facts, Michelle, is guilty of perpetrating more of the same. It's interesting to me that the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch's response in attacking Nigel Farage mirrors that of the Labour Party response in attacking Nigel Farage. So, people such as Keir Starmer's acolyte, the public prosecutor Nazir Afzal, who prosecuted the token cases in the grooming gang inquiry in order to contain them, don't forget, he also decided to attack Nigel Farage. And all Nigel did was give an address this morning saying it's an emergency for the country and that we should be outraged.
And don't forget, Nazir Afzal, who we was talking about, was the lead prosecutor of the Rochdale grooming gang, okay? Now, he's a fan of Keir Starmer, Nazir Afzal, despite the fact that he went on Carol and Quinton's show on BBC 4 and said that the government, the Labour government under Gordon Brown, Keir Starmer was head of the CPS at the time, released a memo to all police forces throughout the country telling them not to investigate the grooming gangs because the women had made, the girls had made selective lifestyle choices, okay? And yet, for some reason, he's still supporting Labour and he's still supporting Keir Starmer. I mean, what's ludicrous? Why you support any of them?
Of course we should be outraged. Multiculturalism in this country has failed. It is dead. And instead, we should be focusing on what we have in common, what we share. And there's a word for that. It's called omniculturalism. And it's about time we...
There's a difference between culture when it comes to what clothes you would, different clothes and food and music. That's a subculture, okay? I'm bringing all that together and saying, let's, we like Indian curry, and that's great. But there are cultures that are intrinsic within the lives of certain groups of people. Okay, if you've lived in a communist country all your life, you're going to believe in communism. It's going to be like a religion to you. If you're born in an Islamic country, it's going to be fundamentally drilled into you from an early age. Yeah, and these cultures clash with countries that don't believe them or question. And British people question things and go, why does this doesn't adhere to our principles in regards to women? So when we start questioning that, and Muslims don't like that, they weaponize a word called Islamophobia, just like this Sikh guy weaponized the word racism.
all understood what it meant to belong to this country. I mean,
so now let me show you this, okay? And if this doesn't boil your piss, right, then nothing will.
Firstly, I would like to thank the 260,974 British men and women who signed the petition to make this debate possible. And I want to welcome these brave survivors who are sitting behind us in the hall. This debate is about them. As you quite rightly say, it's not about politics. I want the world to hear what we heard during the 2 weeks of our independent rape gang inquiry hearings. An inquiry that should never...
Restore Britain, by the way, are funding this inquiry themselves because the Labour Party government will not fucking fund it.
...have needed to happen. I sincerely urge this Parliament to listen to the testimonies from these brave survivors and to act, to finally act. So the first testimony, he took his pants down, penetrated me, had sex with me. He then stopped before ejaculation. He picked up the bottle of Jack Daniels, which was now empty, and he forced it up inside me. He broke the glass while he was there. At that point, I was about 12, nearly 13. Another testimony. I was held down by the men as they each took turns to orally and vaginally rape me, taking it in turns to pin down my arms and my legs. When the assault ended, the men hit me repeatedly, threatened to find me, kill me, and harmed my loved ones if I ever told anybody what had happened. Another. Comments were constantly made suggesting that white girls, the Christian girls, were viewed as having fewer morals or lower values, whereas Muslim girls were described by some of the men as having dignity and higher moral standing. These comparisons were used to justify the way I was treated and to further humiliate and control me.